Ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself, are consumers powerless? The awakening of corporate America. Please welcome your panel. Ohio Representative Warren Davidson, Texas Representative Roger Williams, from Second Vote, Amy Lannhom Wilhite, and your moderator, from The Spectator, Amber Athey.
Well, I'm so glad that the three of you are here. Thank you for being here. We are joined by Congressman Roger Williams, Congressman Warren Davidson, and Amy Wilhite from Second Vote. And I think this is such an important topic because at this point, I think everyone realizes what corporations are doing, how they've really started to toe the line of wokeness and progressivism. But what I'm curious about, and what I hope you all can help answer, is one, why are companies doing this? And two, how can the American consumer fight back? Nike is getting rid of shoes that have the Betsy Ross flag on it because it's allegedly racist and a throwback to slavery. You have Disney that's firing Gina Carano for expressing an opinion about political hatred, ironically enough. And I just wonder, is this profitable for companies? Why are they doing this when so many everyday Americans want politics out of their life? They don't want politics injected into everything they do. So maybe one of you could attempt to answer, why the companies are towing this line.
Sure, I'd like to jump right in. So we've seen the left do this for years. I mean, it's not like it just happened. It's been going on. They have a loud voice. They're out there raising all these concerns with these corporations. And so conservatives we're hardworking folks. We want to raise our families. We want to share with them the American principles. And the left has just been very, very vocal over the last several years. And so we've got to become more vocal with what we're doing so that we can get them to listen to us. And there are things that we can do about that. And Second Vote, we say your first vote is at the ballot box, and your second vote is with your wallet. The power is in our pocket. And Dr. David Black and Congressman Diane Black founded Second Vote 9 years ago when they made a donation at a check register after grocery shopping. And Dr. Black made a donation, and they were walking to the parking lot. And Congressman Black said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "Why wouldn't I do that?" And she said, "Because they actually support Planned Parenthood." So he was like, "What else do I not know?" So he put together this organization, research, and we've got over 1,600 companies that we've researched, and we've scored them on the top conservative issues so that consumers can actually shop their values. When we actually start doing that, we can make a difference to the bottom line of these corporations and these organizations.
And Congressman Davidson, you're on the Financial Services Committee, and it turns out apparently that a lot of the shareholders in these companies, when they're making these decisions, are not actually the ones voting for this sort of progressive orthodoxy that's taken over the business world. Can you explain how exactly that works?
Yeah, so if you think about who owns companies, there's a whole shift in terms of what it means to be a fiduciary. So you see the word fiduciary responsibility. This would be officers and directors. They have a responsibility, a duty of care to provide a profit-maximizing return. For whom? For the shareholders, right? And the shareholders get a vote. You see these efforts right now by the woke left to shift that to environmental, social, governance goals, different metrics that go after stakeholders. Stakeholders are not shareholders. It's never well defined, but who is it? Definitely not. It's not shareholders, right? And they've already used their influence over shareholders because the owners of the companies are often big pension funds steered by left management of the pension fund. And when CalPERS, for example, decided in the 90s to not invest in tobacco companies, it cost the pension fund over $500 billion in missed returns, right? So one of the hearings we had, a few years ago, I asked the representative from the CalPERS fund, did that represent the best interest of your pensioners? Well, the answer is of course not. Now, he said it did, but facts don't seem to matter in any of these debates. And then behind it, when the pension funds aren't the voters, individual shareholders, let's say you have Fidelity, whoever, Schwab, Robinhood, right? Proxy firms advise these, and there's really only two that have 90% of the market share, ISS and Glass Lewis. And these companies, one's got 60% market share, the others get the rest. They dominate the influence of how those shares are voted. So what you really need is a more democratic access to capital. That's kind of the goal of Robinhood. And then you need people to actually vote the shares. And most of us don't do that. Most of us just, used to get the big paper, now you get emails and everything else. But it's really important to vote the direction of the company because in the absence of that, the left is voting it. They've got organized and activated and they're steering the direction of this company and they put pressure on the management teams to go towards this kind of woke heresy code that's out there.
Yeah, and there's so much hypocrisy involved here as well. These companies that take these public stances that seem to align with wokeism behind the scenes are running their businesses in what these progressives would consider to be a very unwoke way. Disney, for example, filmed its Mulan remake next to the Uyghur concentration camps, and the NBA bows down to communist China while trotting out its players in Black Lives Matter shirts. So, Congressman Williams, I guess I would ask you, why exactly are the companies able to get away with this? How can they have one public stance while their business practices go against what they're preaching and no one seems to care?
Well, a lot of people care. I'm a small business owner. I'm one of the few in Congress actually still owns a business, employ hundreds of people back in Texas. But the fact of the matter is, I think a lot of business, especially Main Street. Now, remember, Main Street business is 70% of the payroll, 75% of the workforce. And Main Street business still runs this country. And these are bullies. These people bully people. The fact of the matter is, if we get back to Main Street values, and I'm an old school capitalist, if we get back there and let competition work, a lot of this we won't have to do. You won't have to bow to these people for crying out loud. Competition, let the consumer decide. Let people compete. Take the regulations away from people. And all this conversation about, like you just brought up, about siding with the Chinese and this and that, you can't be all things to all people. You eventually got to go back to your roots. And that's American capitalism, where you can invest 100, lose 100, invest 100, make 100, risk and reward. And we've got to get back to that. Otherwise, the private sector is going to be choked out. Main Street America will be choked out. We'll have these big companies that nobody can put their arms around what they stand for or whatever. And I think that's a big problem. And I think that we need to look at these folks as bullies. And we need to stand up to them. And we need to buy, at the end of the day, buy American. That's the name of the game. So.
I wonder, is competition enough now? Because with social media companies, conservatives created Parler to have a place to speak, and then that was stripped of its web hosting service and shut down by Amazon, and there was collusion among the big tech companies to shut them down. And then with GameStop, Robinhood stopped trading to literally stop people from making money in a legal and acceptable manner. So is there anything that you're doing in Congress, with legislation or measures that you're taking with the force of the government in order to make sure that people have fair access to the marketplace?
One of the big things, and there was a panel earlier on antitrust, but when you think about it, look, we're Republicans, we're not anarchists, right? There are people that basically turned the market into a deity, that we're just going to worship market for the sake of the market. And the reality is our country as a republic was founded to seek virtue, not just the market. And a functioning market has competition. And what's the role of government? In my view and a lot of Republicans' view, it's kind of like if you're watching boxing, it's not boxing when they're over hugging in the corner. The referee's got to go break them up and make them fight. And right now, in market after market, there's nobody engaged in fighting. There's so much concentration, so much power. And you saw that also, whether it's, kind of the swamp, taking care of the swamp in D.C., you alluded to suspending trading. The SEC suspended it for certain shares Friday. But look at the reaction in this COVID. I mean, you could go into Walmart and buy anything. You can buy all kinds of bicycles, but if you want to go to a Main Street bike shop, you couldn't go in. You could have fake flowers delivered from Amazon, but if you wanted a local florist to deliver live flowers, you couldn't do that. And so the biggest companies got bigger and more profitable, and Main Street has been crippled. That disconnect has really got to end, and a lot of that goes to even our monetary policy. When the government spends too much money, like they just did last night over our objections, that gets printed into dollars, and the Fed grows it, and it's destroying the value of the dollars that we all count on. And a buck isn't going to go as far if we keep doing that.
I think that's a great point about how the pandemic has really shut down small businesses, and corporations in many cases have used these restrictions to amass even more power than ever. Amazon, for example, had its best quarter at the height of the pandemic. So Amy, what is your organization doing to make sure that small businesses survive and in encouraging people to go spend their money there? I mean, it's difficult now because so many of them have either shut down or are unable to do business because of regulations.
Right. I mean, we've always said to shop local. Shop local first. Before you go out to the big box stores, shop local, because those are the folks that you know in your communities. They're supporting your Little League and your high school choir. The money is staying in the community. And you know these folks, and they mostly align with your values. And so these big box organizations that you go shop to, they are funneling these organizations that are attacking our values. We need to quit funding them and shopping with them so that we can align our values with our money is the key here. So we've got to quit shopping at these places. We score them. We've got over 1,600 companies scored. It's secondvote.com. You can go to our website or down an application and search a company score. And you can look on there and see what they're giving with their charitable dollars and what they're supporting. And so we've got to look at that. We've got to take notice. We can't continue to do what we've been doing. We've got to make a difference. And it's us here today. Everybody here, you guys are making the difference. You're here, you want to. But we've got to all do it together. And we can't do it just one time. We can't not go shop here because they did this. We've got to do it for the long haul.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but with your organization, you can empower yourself and your family members and your community to shop at places that align with your values. Unfortunately, it seems that it's not just private business anymore. There's actually a collusion that's going on with the government. For example, back in 2013, there was Operation Choke Point, where the government was encouraging banks to basically deplatform individuals and deny them access from the economy. So how do we fight back against that problem?
Well, let me bring up that Operation Choke Point. This was a total takeover. Somebody sat down and listed 45 businesses that they didn't think the bank should do business with. You can probably guess what they are: gun stores, finance companies, car dealers. And I may be the only one in Congress that was directly affected by Operation Choke Point, where I had a bank that I'd done business with for 23 years, even served on the board at some point in time, called me one day and said I need to remove all my money in 24 hours out of the bank because they didn't want to finance a car dealer or a congressman. And this happened all over. And it happened to small people. I was fortunately able to get a bank, but it put people out of work. And that was a product of what they call the CFPB, if you follow that, Warrant on Financial Services. And with President Trump, we were able to slow that down. Now it's building back up again. And they're going to be put more people on there where small business cannot borrow money, small business can't have a checking account. They just choke it out. And then you got the big boys running it with the attitude we see, in-your-face attitude, a socialistic attitude toward the economy. And that's where we are today. And so when you talk about Operation Choke Point, you won't be able to buy a car, you won't be able to buy a gun, you won't be able to start a business, you won't be able to do anything. And then, of course, we know the government owns us and we know the road that takes us. So it's a dangerous time. And you just look about a year ago now, we had an economy that had more jobs than people. How could that ever happen? Did any of us think that would happen? I didn't think so. We had more jobs than people. And now this president has gone in there in 3 weeks, just gutted everything. So we can get back to where we were. But that's why 2022 is so important. We have to make sure we get the House and get the Senate, so we're not having these kind of conversations. 2 years from now. So it's a dangerous thing, and you got to watch the big companies because they'll choke the little guy out. And like you said, the little guy is America.
Right.
The little guy is our friend. The little guy is the payroll. The little guy is the deposit. The little guy is the one that gives you service, and the little guy is the one that knows your name. That's what we're fighting for. That's risk and reward. It's American capitalism.
So let's support them. Let's support them
Totally.
and quit supporting these other organizations.
Yeah, the importance of elections really can't be overstated. You're on the Financial Services Committee with Maxine Waters, Al Green, 3 out of 4 members of the squad. These people have so much control over who gets access to the economy, which businesses get to stay open. I mean, tell us about working with these people. How much control do they want?
Well, it's a tightly controlled committee, as everyone has found out. Maxine Waters rules it with an iron fist. But if you look at the ideas that Roger talked about in Operation Choke Point, the idea that you can cancel people, look, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez has made the case, like, no one should bank these people. Right? And you would think that people that in the past have experienced discrimination, where they couldn't get a loan because they were the wrong people on the end of this people. And look, that's a reality in our country. We shouldn't deny that, but we should fight to make sure we don't go back to that and just replace these people with some different group of people. And when you can't make it illegal on the front end, like guns, they will try to make it illegal on the back end by debanking you, deplatforming you, and canceling you. And if right now they're doing it largely to companies and a handful of individuals. But the reality is you can look at any number of dystopian futures. I don't know, I'm fond of Revelation. It looks pretty scary. And they want to cancel what you can buy. There are people talking about the exact same logic of that today. They want to end cash. They want a central bank digital currency that the government controls. They can see every transaction you've got. And in China, they're already doing this, right? They don't just have a credit score in China. They have a social credit score, right? So they use facial recognition, tracking. They track your location. If you got a cell phone, you essentially got an ankle bracelet where they track your location and everything. And they will say, boy, I don't know. It looks like you might have been at CPAC. Social credit score going down, for example. And that's what they're already doing in China. And there are people on the left that are hoping for that vision to come true in America. So look, policy really does matter, and they know, because that's why the cast of characters you listed, the squad, and some of the most outspoken folks on the left are in the Financial Services Committee that Roger and I serve on.
Well, I think there is some cause for optimism because the very hotel that we were sitting in was almost canceled for hosting CPAC, and they just released a statement shortly before we came on stage affirming their right to host people who believe in freedom of speech. Right, so let's reward the companies that stand up for everyday Americans and go after the elites who want to oppress us. Thank you, Congressman Davidson, Congressman Williams, Amy Wilhite. Thank you so much for doing this panel. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank
you.
Thank you.